Chapter 10-19. Lin Feng's departure seemed to have sapped all the energy in Yun Hu's body. He held it in for a long time. His palms were red from clenching so tightly that he didn't rush over. He didn't want to crush that person once and crush all the feelings he had for so many years. He also didn't want to be treated like a stranger after returning to China. That was good. Even if one day, he really appeared at his wedding as the best man. At the very least, he could still drink for that person many years later. His heart felt like it was being torn apart. Even when he breathed, he felt weak. When the youngster pushed the door open and walked out, he saw the man in this state. That handsome face was pale. It didn't look like he had just found him. "Why aren't you coming in?" The bewitching youngster licked his lips. "Honestly, you liked that person just now, right? But he looks like a straight man. Even though he looks good, it's obvious that he isn't on the same path as us." Yun, who seemed to have just realized that there was someone there. He reached out to close the door and walked in. As he walked, he fastened his shirt and said in a cold tone, "You can leave." The bewitching youngster looked at him and felt pity. "Your figure is really good. How about this? I'll refund you the money and we can do it once." Yun, who didn't even look at that person. He threw the clothes on the bed to him. His rejection meant everything. The bewitching youngster didn't believe it. "Hey, I look good too. You know how our circle works. When you can't hold it in, you can do it once." With that he walked over, his breath blowing into Yun Hu's ear. Even his hand wanted to touch it. Yun Hu reached out and blocked his arm. There wasn't a trace of warmth in his eyes. "If you still want your hand in your job, get out." Boring. The bewitching youngster saw that he didn't have a chance. He bit his lower lip angrily and left with his clothes. Anyway, this person gave him a lot of money. Besides, when his boss asked him to come, he had already instructed him not to offend him because of his high status. At first, he thought that he could cozy up to a sugar daddy. Why couldn't he get close to him? "Are you impotent?" Yun Hu smirked. "I can't do it to you. I'll say it one last time, get out." The enchanting young man knew that if he continued to stay, he would really have no future. No matter what, he was still a nobody. It was better for him to leave. The door was closed. The room returned to its original state. It was bone-piercingly cold. Even though it was summer in July, Yun Hu felt as though his heart was frozen in ice water. She looked at the bed in the living room. He suddenly felt that this place was very dirty. Perhaps it was because he wasn't that guy. In reality, Yun Hu didn't dare to let Lin Feng in. Because if they came in, they would find that the bed was not moved at all. Even the enchanting young man was just an act he found. It was as if he couldn't stand even a little bit of that fellow's alienation and awkwardness towards him. He began to calculate carefully. It had been a long time since Lin Feng had been alone with him. He was probably trying to avoid arousing suspicion and worried that his family would find out. Yes, as a straight man, of course he would be worried. Sometimes, Yun Hu really wanted to tell that guy, "I'm not bent either. I saw that the other guys couldn't take it either. I just like you too much." Chapter 10-20. Yun Hu sat there for a long time before placing the ringing phone to his ear. He glanced out the window. "Hello, it's you. Help me settle it." "There's no need, just one plane ticket will do." "Yes, I don't need two." "Why did it suddenly become one? Didn't you say someone was going with you?" Yun Hu tightened his grip, seemingly laughing at himself. "There won't be anyone going with me. After today, that person wouldn't be embarrassed anymore. Similarly, there wouldn't be any possibility in front of him." He understood. That person said he was naive and sweet, but there were some things he didn't care about. It was strange too. How could a boy be like that? Ever since he was young, he had always said that he would marry a girl and treat her well. These days, girls didn't have a sense of security. If he liked someone, he would only choose that person and treat her well for the rest of his life. When Lin Feng said this, there were other people around. Everyone burst into laughter, but the meaning behind it was unclear. Only he sat at the side, envious of the person he would like. Once he chose her, he would treat her well for the rest of his life. This sentence sounded so good. It was a pity that he would never be that person. Lin Feng, who was so clean and pure, would not accept his current behavior. Yun Hu glanced down, Reaching out to cover his expression, the person on the other end asked, "What's wrong with your voice? Why does it sound so weird? Are you feeling unwell?" Yunhu. There was no reply. The person on the other end froze. Then he exclaimed in shock, "Yunhu, are you crying? How is that possible?" Yunhu laughed. When his thin lips curved up, there was a trace at the corner of his lips. His voice was hoarse. "Why would I cry? You're thinking too much. I'm hanging up." Ka. The phone was locked and the screen dimmed. His pitch-black eyes dimmed along with it. Time trickled by. Outside the hotel, Lin Feng didn't call Little Spade. There were some things that he had to solve himself. Otherwise, he would be a coward. Besides, if Little Spade asked him why his stomach hurt, he couldn't possibly tell him that he had fed himself a bottle of ergotu in order to send himself to Yunhu's mouth. In the end, it didn't work. It was embarrassing, wasn't it? Besides, he had to go home. He couldn't let the Empress Dowager do it herself. Sitting in a taxi, he felt dizzy the entire way. The master was a nice person. He kept advising him, "You youngsters, you drink so much when you're heartbroken. Drink less in the future. Think about your parents, it's not a big deal." "Okay," Lin Feng replied as he looked out of the window. The driver glanced sideways at the person sitting next to him. He felt that the other party was exceptionally obedient, so he even adjusted the temperature of the air conditioner. Lin Feng might not have many good points, but there was one thing he had always done. He would not show any emotion in front of his mother. It was the same this time. Mama Lin was tapping her back as she spoke on the phone. Yes, he will be doing business in the future. That's good too. Lin Feng isn't suited for politics anyway. After she hung up, Lin Feng walked over to massage the Empress Dowager's shoulders. "You're back." Mama Lin turned around and paused. "Why do you reek of alcohol?" Chapter 10:21. Lin Feng smiled brightly. "Supreme Alliance 1, I'm so happy that I drank." "Look at you, you're already so old. Why can't you learn from Yunhu and be more mature?" Mama Lin nagged, but her eyes showed how much she liked her son. "All right, you must be feeling terrible after drinking. Go drink some hot water and sleep." Lin Feng replied. After drinking the hot water, he walked upstairs. After he threw himself onto the bed, the after effects of the alcohol became stronger. It wasn't a stomachache but a burning sensation. Something wasn't right with his entire being. A long time ago, he knew that he had to work hard to catch up to that person since he wasn't smart and Yunhu was too outstanding. That excellence had nothing to do with his family background. Ever since he was young, Yunhu had received more praises than anyone else. His mother had always treated him like the son next door and educated him. At that time he had been rather happy. His brother was outstanding because he was outstanding. But from now on, he probably wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Now, someone else had gone overseas with him. He had stayed here. That wasn't too bad. He still had things he had to do. Lin Feng curled up in his blanket, glancing at a spot in the corner of the room before closing his eyes. Qin family's house. Second floor. When Bo Jiu woke up, there was no one beside her. The light on her phone was blinking. She swiped the screen and saw a missed call from Lin Feng. Bo Jiu stood up on one leg and dialed the number. It rang for a while but no one picked up. When the call ended, Bo Jiu frowned and sent him a message. "Team Beauty, what's wrong?" He replied instantly. "Nothing, I was just sleeping. I wanted to celebrate with you but I'm too tired now, I just want to sleep." Bo Jiu glanced at the reply and typed a few more words. "Let Almighty Yun celebrate with you." Lin Feng replied, "MH." He only replied with an MH? That didn't seem like someone's style. Bo Jiu had wanted to ask more. The door was suddenly pushed open. It was movie queen Anne and behind her was the director who had wanted her to act in a movie. The director's eyes lit up when he saw Bo Jiu. "Mr. Fu, I would like to extend my sincere invitation to you to participate in our movie. Both your aura and the way you play are perfect for the hacker in the movie. I guarantee that you will accept our description of the character." Honestly, Bo Jiu was still in a daze. She had originally thought that the first thing she would see after waking up would be the Almighty's handsome face. He didn't see the Almighty, but he saw the director. Bo Jiao pressed down on her silver hair, wondering where the Almighty had gone. Movie queen and wanted to laugh. The child definitely didn't know what kind of state he was in. She looked slightly adorable, as if she wanted to find her ice-cold boy as soon as she woke up. The considerate movie queen and couldn't let them keep searching. She smiled and said, "Your brother Mo went to discuss business. Let's talk about the movie. What do you think?" Bo Jiao wanted to reject him. The international director spoke again. "Our filming location is in America. You can treat it as a free trip. Go and have a look first. We will depart 3 days later. Don't rush to give me an answer. Young man, think about it again." Bo Jiao's fingers stilled. Then she smiled. "There's no need to think about it. I've decided to accept it." MMH? The international director almost thought that he had heard wrongly. After all, the young man had always been very nonchalant about this matter. He could tell that the young man was not putting on a show. He really did not want to take on this movie. Nor did he want to be popular. Why did he suddenly agree to it so readily? Bo Jiao had been thinking of ways to kidnap the Almighty. It wasn't practical to do it in China. The Almighty would probably know her identity before she could even make a move. With the Qin family's protection, it would be impossible to kidnap the Almighty. But it would be different in America. There would be a lot of room for maneuvering. At the very least, the security for a private jet wouldn't be as strict. That way, it would be easier to kidnap someone. More importantly, it would be easier for people to accept her going overseas in this manner. 3 days was enough for her to wrap things up. Fu Zhongyi's side had probably been whittled down. He was probably just left with some shares. During the shareholders' meeting the day after tomorrow, she would personally take back everything that belonged to He Honghua. Other than the shares, she would also take back her pride. After that, Bo Jiao could return to the Fifth Avenue with peace of mind. Filming in America wasn't just an excuse to kidnap the Almighty, it was also a buffer for He Honghua. Bo Jiao knew how much He Honghua doted on her. If she disappeared suddenly, He Honghua wouldn't be able to take it. She could choose not to tell anyone about her true identity. But when the time came, she had to tell He Honghua. Because in this world, there wasn't anyone more qualified than He Honghua to know the truth. But she had to wait until she returned to the Fifth Avenue. If not, He Honghua would be in danger. This was what Bo Jiao had always wanted to avoid. That was why she had to return to the Fifth Avenue. Her father was right about one thing. She couldn't have anyone close to her. It was too dangerous. The fake Z was just one side. There were more sides and more dangers. She couldn't let He Honghua be in such an environment. It wasn't just He Honghua, there was also Feng Shang, Yao Yao, Uncle Yin, Lin Feng, and Almighty Yun. Everyone who was related to her. Once her identity was exposed and the fake Z found out about her existence, the people around her might not be able to protect themselves. She had to catch the fake Z. But the battlefield wasn't here. It was somewhere else. Before that, it was important to plan properly. She had to kidnap the Almighty and treat his hand. Where's the script? Bo Jiao smiled. If it's a hacker movie, I'm interested. The international director relaxed. Come, I'll send it to you. Take a look really. Trust me, after this movie is completed, I'll definitely make you the Prince Charming of the nation. Bo Jiao caressed her nose and didn't reply. After all, she had never imagined that she would be filming in her lifetime. I don't have any acting skills, I won't have a lot of scenes, right? The international director, who had wanted to add scenes for the youngster, felt a little upset. No, but who said you don't have acting skills? The commercial you filmed was really good. Trust me, you will definitely be popular in the future. Chapter 1022. Listen to me, it's like this. The international director was really a drama addict. He started to speak in English when he was agitated. In the end, he seemed to have realized something, turning towards Bo Jiao. Ah, I forgot to speak in Chinese. Let me repeat myself. Bo Jiao. Movie queen uncovered her mouth and giggled. After all, Jiao's helpless expression of wanting to say something was too cute. She really wanted to reach out and pinch that fair and clean little face. Why couldn't he be her son? But it didn't matter, he would be considered part of her family once she married him. But she was worried about Mo. She had never seen her son so stubborn towards anyone. She wasn't sure if it was a good or bad thing. Outside the window, the night deepened by several degrees. In the study room of the Qin family's house, Qin Mo's gaze was so deep that there wasn't any warmth in it. You're saying that she has been preparing to leave the country recently? Yes, young master. The Special Forces soldier scrolled through the information on the computer, his voice deep. Besides, I realize that young Master Jiu is very smart. Even though he is a high school student and seems to be playing his sports on the surface, he is involved in many things. Even Fu Zhongyi, his father, was plotted against. Qin Mo's tone was calm. Taking back what was stolen is a courageous act. Fu Zhongyi deserves to be plotted against. The Special Forces soldier. Cough, cough. How could he have forgotten that his young master was obsessed with a certain youngster? He should have phrased his words better. Young Master Jiu's father isn't a good person. He even prepared some scandals regarding young Master Jiu to be exposed during the shareholders' meeting so that he can hold the company in his hands. Qin Mo tapped his fingers on the table. What scandals? Photos of young Master Jiu confessing to a man. The Special Forces soldier didn't want to talk about this since his boss wasn't in a good mood. As expected, the sound of a lighter came from the other end, followed by a cold voice. Who provided these photos? Invite them out for a chat. The Special Forces soldier knew that a chat with a young master wouldn't be friendly. What else did you find? Qin Mo wanted to smoke, but just as he was about to light it, he seemed to have recalled something. He frowned, tossing the silver lighter onto the table. The Special Forces soldier didn't understand. What else? No more. Qin Mo glanced up. Is she in contact with Hoshino? No. After all, from the start, Boss had said this was the most important direction of investigation. The two of them don't seem to be related. No, it doesn't matter. The better they hid it, the more it meant that their relationship was not shallow. Hoshino should be the childhood sweetheart the guy mentioned. Qin Mo had never cared so much about their childhood interactions. Especially when that guy was sleeping, he was still muttering the other party's name. Qin Mo's fingers froze, his gaze cold. Why is she preparing to leave the country? I've looked into it. Strangely, young Master Jiu's mother didn't seem to know that young Master Jiu was planning to go abroad. The last sentence was something the Special Forces soldier didn't say easily. Suddenly, Qin Mo's eyes darkened. Are you saying that even He Honghua doesn't know? Yes. The Special Forces soldier looked at the information again. Qin Mo's voice was deeper and colder than before. How many days does she intend to stay abroad? This. The Special Forces soldier hesitated for a moment. Young Master Jiu didn't book a return ticket. She probably hasn't decided on her return date. Hasn't decided on her return date? When he heard this word, Qin Mo felt as though all the warmth in his body had been sucked out. His voice reached the Special Forces soldier's ears through the phone, sending chills down his spine. It isn't that she didn't book a return ticket. She has no intention of coming back. The Special Forces soldier stilled. What did boss mean? Just as he was about to ask something, the other party hung up. He could vaguely hear the sound of something being flung out. The entire study room dimmed with the sound. Qin Mo's wrist was wrapped in a white bandage, which made him look different from his usual self. There was a coldness in his abstinence. Until now, that guy had never thought of having a future with him. Even at this stage, it was the same. Qin Mo sat there, his hair falling down. His lips curved upwards, but there wasn't a hint of a smile. His wrist hurt, but he didn't seem to feel it. When Madame Zhang entered and saw the torn white cloth, she exclaimed, "Young master, your hand!" Qin Mo glanced over, reaching out to pull the white cloth back to its original position. Then he tightened his grip, his voice calm. What's the matter? Auntie Zhang sensed the chill on her young master's body, but she didn't know what happened. She walked over to pick up the phone and placed it on the table. Madam asked me to tell young master that dinner is ready and young Master Jiu is here. I understand. Qin Mo seemed a little distracted. He only said that he understood and didn't say anything else. Madame Zhang glanced over the table and paused. Didn't young master place the mask on the coffee table outside? Why is there one here? Qin Mo frowned. The coffee table outside? Yes, I just put it away for young master. Didn't young master like this mask? Madame Zhang was right. Qinemo really liked the mask. It wasn't because of anything special, but because it was a gift from someone. That was why he treasured it so much. Naturally, it couldn't be compared to the USB lighter. But basically, he would keep anything Bo Jiu gave him, even if it was a black mask. But Qinemo remembered clearly that the mask had always been in his study room. He had never taken it out. So what exactly was the one Madame Zhang was looking at? Qinemo narrowed his eyes. Madame Zhang, where did you keep the mask? It's at the coffee table. Young master didn't take it? Madame Zhang was puzzled. Qinemo had already stood up. He walked towards the direction of the living room and stopped by the coffee table. His figure was very slender. Even though his wrist was still wrapped in bandages, the whiter his skin was, the more Qinemo looked like a sick prince. He was so handsome that it made people feel pity for him. Here. Qinemo asked Madame Zhang. Madame Zhang nodded. In the small compartment under the coffee table. Qinemo reached out and pulled open the secret compartment. His slender fingers moved and a mask appeared in his palm. Chapter 1023. It was indeed the same. The material, brand, and color were exactly the same. But the one that Qinemo took out was a gift from someone. The one that Madame Zhang found was taken from Zi's face when he had fought with Zi that day. Qinemo never believed in coincidences. The conjecture that was buried deep in his heart seemed to have been confirmed. It was like the tip of the iceberg had been split open. It was a familiar style of doing things. It was the same hacking skills. Even though she had toned it down, the first time he had met her in the game, the reason he had noticed her was because her methods were similar to Zi. And, the way she stood in the darkness, her hands stained with blood but her eyes glowing. The determination to give some people a voice regardless of everything. The arrogant look that didn't care about anyone. The dazzling disguise technique. The feeling that she gave people was gentle, but when she lowered her eyes, there was a cunning smile on her face. All of these were Zi's unique traits. He knew, but he didn't want to admit that she was Zi. Qinemo stood there, his fingers tightening around the black mask in his hands. Madame Zhang didn't know what had happened. But this was the first time she saw her young master like this. There were obvious fluctuations in his emotions. His eyes started to shake violently. She didn't know what was going on. At this moment, the three people upstairs finished discussing the script and walked down. Bo Jiu's legs were long and she walked in front. Ever since she woke up, she had been looking for her brother Mo. When she saw the tall and slender figure, her eyes lit up. She smiled and called out, "Brother Mo!" In that instant, the international director had an illusion. Why did it feel like there was a tale behind the youngster? The youngster had always given him the impression that she was evil, untamed and hard to control, or mysterious with a layer of fog in her smile. But it had never been like this. How should he describe it? Little loyal dog? This must be his illusion. However, this illusion didn't fade as time passed. The silver-haired youngster walked towards the man without a word. Her clear voice carried other emotions. "Brother Mo, what are you looking at?" Auntie Zhang wanted to say something. Qinemo glanced over and pushed the drawer inwards. Instantly, there was nothing in his hands. When he straightened his back, there wasn't a hint of emotion on his face. Nothing. Bo Jiu arched a brow but didn't continue asking. The moment she saw his handsome face, Bo Jiu only had one thought left in her mind. She was going to kidnap him and the Almighty would definitely be furious. However, she also knew how to coax people. When they reached the main house, she would ask Grandfather Butler to make more delicious food for the Almighty. She remembered that her pet loved to read since he was young. Before she went back, she would ask the butler to buy some books. Otherwise, her place would indeed lack a cultural atmosphere. Also, freshly ground coffee. She knew how to do that. However, the Almighty's skills were a problem. In order to avoid any unpleasantness between the two people, she had to prepare some medicine. The more Bo Jiu thought about it, the harder it was to please the Almighty. Unlike her, she loved money. Even the Almighty couldn't be bought with money. Bo Jiu wouldn't do the same stupid thing she had done when she was younger. He wanted to see if there was anything that the Almighty liked. Bo Jiu thought about it seriously. Qinemo glanced at her. He didn't mention the mask and pretended as though nothing had happened. He reached out and pulled the youngster over. He tidied the youngster's hair and asked calmly, "Are you hungry?" "Mh." Bojo smiled again. The international director was dumbfounded. He glanced at Movie Queen Anne as though saying, "You're not going to do anything about it?" Movie Queen Anne smiled elegantly, explaining everything. The international director understood and watched the interaction between the two of them. The youngster really liked to follow behind the man. She was even saying things like, "Brother Mo, I want to eat meat. I've been craving meat recently. I don't know why, but after some thought, I think it's because my body is growing and I need meat." Chin Mo glanced over, maintaining a distance between them. "When aren't you craving meat? You even use your body to hide your nature." The youngster smiled. She didn't say a word and dangled a lollipop. "Make it spicy. It's better with spicy beef." Chin Mo had walked into the kitchen and was mixing the ingredients. The international director was shocked. He had known his good friend's son since young. He had always been polite, but not everyone could get close to him. At that time, it wasn't that he hadn't thought of poaching Chin Yi away. But Chin Mo had only replied, "I'm not interested in acting, but I'm interested in film investments. I can work with you in this aspect." At that time, Chin Mo had been 17. He had been able to control the entire scene at such a young age. It seemed to have something to do with his background, but at the same time he was really noble. He would never have imagined that he would be mixing ingredients for someone. When Chin Mo picked up the chopsticks, he glanced at the youngster again. His gaze was unreadable. Bojo was confused. She blinked, the tear mole at the corner of her eye glowing brightly. Chin Mo dipped the chopsticks into the seasoning in the wooden bowl and brought it to the youngster's lips naturally. Bojo leaned over and tasted it. She narrowed her eyes like a cat. Delicious. But after saying that, Bojo realized that the way she was holding onto the Almighty's wrist and tasting his food seemed a little too intimate. She paused and turned towards Movie Queen and Movie Queen Anne, and the director had already sat down and were chatting. They probably weren't paying attention to them. Bojo took a second bite. She couldn't waste it. Chin Mo watched as the youngster stuck her tongue out, his gaze deepening. But this time, he didn't do anything. He placed the bowl down and rejected the intimacy. His voice was calm. "I'm going to make a call. Eat first, don't eat meat all the time. I'll get Madame Zhang to keep an eye on you. If you don't have any vegetables, do another physics test." Bojo. The Almighty always used physics to threaten her. It wasn't cute. Forget it. The Almighty was handsome and everything he said was right. But was she thinking too much? Why did she feel that the Almighty today was indescribably estranged from his usual self? It was subtle, as though there was a layer of fog between them. It wasn't real. Chapter 1024. Chin Mo returned to the study room. The first thing he did was to look at the information he had gotten previously. It was clearly written that the youngster had never been to America, and it was impossible for her to appear on Fifth Avenue. But the contact at the plaza that day, Chin Mo was certain that it was Z and that she wasn't an imposter. But how could he explain the difference in their ages and backgrounds? Chin Mo swiped his phone and made a call. No one expected that the person he called was Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing was still wearing Xiangnan's uniform and was doing an interview with Luo Luo. Before the results of the competition were out, all the media assumed that Xiangnan would represent China in the Asian Cup. But now that Supreme Alliance was the winner, it was inevitable that they would encounter such problems. After Xiao Jing replied, his phone rang. The camera swept across his screen. When he saw Chin Mo's name, the interviewer was stunned. What was going on? Didn't they say that Chin Mo and Xiao Jing couldn't get along? Could it be that the rumors online were true? These two Almighties were a love-hate couple? Luo Luo already knew that the two of them were in contact privately. She laughed lightly. It's a call from the official couple. Hurry up and pick it up. I'll be here. Xiao Jing didn't bother about his teammates' words. His demeanor was extremely important at this moment. He stood up and said, "Excuse me." Then he walked to the corner and picked up the call. "Hello. The question I asked you the other time." Chin Mo didn't beat around the bush. The side of his face was sharp from the light. His tone was calm. Other than the appearance of a second personality, there is another possibility. What is it? Xiao Jing didn't expect him to bring up the past. He paused. The other possibility is more ridiculous. You might not believe it. Qin Mo didn't speak. It was obvious that he was waiting for his answer. Xiao Jing spat out 4 words. Soul exchange. Soul call. Qin Mo froze. He frowned subconsciously and laughed. You know I don't believe in such things. Xiao Jing also knew that this was very hard to believe. My research topic involves this aspect. It sounds a little unbelievable, but as a research topic, once humans reach a point of convergence under the influence of a certain magnetic field, when one of them loses his ability to think, the other person's memory will exist in this body under the influence of some unknown factors. In other words, the original owner will no longer exist and become another person. This is because what a person looks like is determined by their memory. As for why there will be memory rebirth, I don't think it's clear. After all, this is just a proposal, and such a proposal is too absurd. There are extreme flaws in some aspects, which means that it can't be verified as scientific. But if there really is a person who suddenly becomes different from before, not only in personality but also in behavior and preferences, it's either the appearance of a second personality or the reconstruction of memories. Qin Mo listened to the words on the other end of the line. He knew very well how much Xiao Jing had studied these things, and he also knew that Xiao Jing was making a rational analysis. In reality, the youngster he knew didn't fit the evaluation of this person by the outside world. He was infatuated, pursued, good for nothing, liked to throw money around, was like a nouveau riche, had a weak personality, and was like a sissy. This was the former young Master Fu. Chapter 1025. It wasn't just that these things no longer existed. According to the information they had gathered, there were many things that were different from the previous young Master Fu. For example, someone who never liked to play online games suddenly became the FC King of Zone C. That kind of hand speed and skill wasn't something that could be learned in a day or two. Another example would be this person's academic performance. In the past, it could be said that it was a tragic sight, unlike now. Other than being weak in physics, everything else was surprisingly good, especially in the subject of English. Also, this person could speak Tokyo's local language in addition to English. Moreover, her beautiful skills were completely different from before. In fact, a certain someone's attitude towards him was very different from before. Even though he wasn't familiar with the person beside him, with Jiang's was reminder, he knew that someone used to be crazily infatuated with him and did everything to get him. Not only that, but she also seemed to have good feelings towards other people. He liked to treat people at nightclubs. Even if he spent money like that, his classmates didn't really like him because of his personality. Because there was nothing to like about the former young master of the Fu family. Even his attitude towards He Honghua was expressed in a different way. There was a business gathering. From afar, she could see that the young master of the Fu family saying nasty words in front of so many people. He was despising He Honghua, causing her to be unable to even lift her head. The current person. When he treated He Honghua, he was extremely gentle. Soul exchange? Qin Mo's eyes dimmed and he said, I understand, I owe you a favor this time. As for what we said today, keep it a secret. You're welcome. Invest more money in my research project. Xiao Jing's tone didn't change at all. Of course, young Master Xiao didn't lack money. Qin Mo replied and didn't say anything else. Xiao Jing added, Supreme Alliance has to compete in the Asian Cup. How's your hand? It's still being treated. Qin Mo suddenly stopped speaking. When he glanced up, he could clearly sense that there was someone behind him. Qin Mo's fingers paused. I have something on, I'll hang up first. With that, Qin Mo stood there without turning his head. What are you doing, hiding there so sneakily? Have I been discovered? She had just entered. Sometimes, the Almighty could be quite troublesome when he was smart. Bojiu chuckled. She stepped forward and changed the topic. There's too little sauce. It's not enough. Something unknown surged in Qin Mo's eyes. Then he walked towards the youngster. Qin Mo's expression didn't change at all. Hence, the Almighty's gaze on her made her skin crawl. But she didn't know why. It was an indescribable indifference. However, There was something more to it than indifference. Bo Jiao tried to figure out what was wrong with her. In the end, he couldn't figure it out. Qin Mo stuffed one hand into his trouser pocket and kept his phone. He lowered his lids to look at the youngster's bright eyes when she smiled. No wonder her mood changed when she heard him call her little Fu Jiao. So, the person who lived in this shell had the surname Bo? Z this time. Chapter 10:26. Bo Jiao felt that the Almighty's danger level was extremely high today. Just as she was about to say something, someone lifted her chin. Her chin was lifted. At first, she didn't know what Qin Mo was going to do. But when his finger brushed past the corner of her lips, there was a slight warmth as he rubbed against it. That was when Bo Jiao realized that the Almighty was wiping her mouth. It was as though a gust of wind had blown over. Her surroundings were filled with his familiar scent. It was thicker than the sandalwood in the room. The scent of mint and tobacco penetrated her heart. It was hard to escape. "How much food did you secretly eat? You're so dirty." His voice was already pleasant to listen to, and coupled with this kind of smiling words, it sounded even more pleasant. It was a rare sight. Bo Jiao didn't even look up when a kiss landed on her lips. It was slightly cold, but in such a summer day, it was comforting to touch. It was as though the distance she had felt before was just an illusion. Bo Jiao didn't understand. Her eyes were filled with doubt. However, Qin Mo pressed her against the doorframe. His originally light kiss gradually changed, as though he wanted to swallow her whole into his stomach. Even his breath was different from usual. The kiss made both of their pulse beat differently than before. The tip of his tongue was numb from the sucking, and his heartbeat was much faster than before. His mind was completely blank, and his thoughts were sucked away. Qin Mo's hand was on her waist from behind. Bo Jiao's t-shirt was half opened. Her porcelain white waist was exposed. Their position was indescribably intimate. "Brother Mo." Bo Jiao tilted her head, wanting him to stop. Indeed, Qin Mo stopped. His lips curled up, and his breath landed beside her ear. It was a little unstable and low. "Why? Don't you like it?" That handsome face that was stained with love made him look like a demon from a cult. His pitch-black hair was also softer than usual, and that tone of his. Bo Jiao narrowed her eyes and muttered, "Don't use your beauty to tempt me." Qin Mo paused. Then he smiled, reaching out to help the youngster tidy her clothes. He retracted his hand like a gentleman. "Let's go eat." Bo Jiao replied. She watched as he walked away. Something seemed amiss that she hadn't noticed. But she couldn't explain it. The two of them walked out of the study one after another. At this moment, the international director and movie queen were almost done talking. He asked Bo Jiao which day she was planning to fly over so that someone could make arrangements. Qin Mo's hand, which was swirling the red wine glass, paused. He asked casually, "Fly over?" Movie queen chuckled with a hint of glee. "Jiao just agreed to our production team's invitation to fly to America with me. Let me tell you, Jiao is doing this willingly. As the captain, don't play your capitalist game and forbid Jiao from going here or there." Hearing this, Qin Mo's eyes darkened, the warmth in his body disappeared, his voice faint. "She isn't suited to go abroad." "Not suitable to go abroad?" Movie queen shook her head. "Son, your excuse isn't convincing at all." Qin Mo put down his chopsticks and opened his mouth. "Brother Mo, do you want to go with me? They said that the environment there isn't bad. It should be helpful for your hands treatment. Let him tag along?" This was something Qin Mo hadn't considered. After all, the person standing in front of him wasn't the young Master Fu but a new soul. From the information he had, she had been planning to go abroad, probably because she was worried that he would guess something. A certain someone was hiding too many secrets. The biggest one was probably the one he had just found out about. She wanted him to tag along because she was certain that he wouldn't be able to find out. That was why she was so daring to make a move under his nose. Qin Mo raised his wine glass and took a sip. "When are we going?" 3 days later. Bo Jiao felt that the first step of her kidnapping was about to be completed. Hence, she added, "I asked the director and he said that there aren't many scenes, it shouldn't take long." Bo Jiao replied naturally, "Once we're done, we can walk around the area." That way, it would be easier to kidnap someone. Bo Jiu supported the side of her face, replying to Qin Mo, throwing out a bait. I have never gone overseas with Brother Mo. This is a good chance. Qin Mo chuckled. Indeed, he had never gone overseas alone with a certain someone. But at this moment, Qin Mo was pondering over something else. For example, why was she so insistent on getting him to tag along? This time, what exactly did she want? Qin Mo's long fingers tapped against the edge of the glass, seemingly in deep thought. After a moment he replied, "All right." He watched as Bo Jiu's eyes lit up, like a little fox that had succeeded in her scheme. His lips lifted. "But I have a condition." She had to pay a price to kidnap the Almighty. Bo Jiu understood this logic. She held her chin and smiled lazily. "Brother Mo, tell me, what is it? You have to stay at my place for the 3 days before you leave." Qin Mo watched her. Bo Jiu paused. This was a difficult request. If she stayed here, it wouldn't be easy to contact Hoshino. However, it was not that there was no solution. Tomorrow was the Fu Group's shareholders' meeting. The Almighty wouldn't be suspicious if she went out. When she realized that movie Queen Anne and the others were looking at her, Bo Jiu seemed to remember something. When she agreed, she added, "Brother Mo's hand isn't convenient. Do you want me to be a free nurse?" "Sure." Qin Mo knew why Bo Jiu had said that. He swept the youngster a glance. "A nurse who sleeps by herself and doesn't care about the patient? I just got started. I'll get better in the future." Bo Jiu laughed heartily, not forgetting to lower her head to eat the rice in her bowl. Qin Mo watched the youngster beside him. She was exceptionally obedient during meals. When she lowered her head, she would be fluffy. When she lifted her head, she would definitely be craving for a particular dish. She was adorable no matter how he looked at her. No matter how accurate Qin Mo's analysis of Z. He had never thought about it. In reality, when the Real Z appeared in front of him, she would be like this. He recalled the first time they fought on the Fifth Avenue. That arrogant youngster, who didn't seem to diminish even when she was surrounded by the police, was right beside his hand. As long as he stretched his hand out, he would be able to touch her fluffy head. The corners of Qin Mo's lips curled up slightly. Z. Chapter 10:27. Bo Jiu seemed to have sensed his gaze. She tilted her lids, a piece of meat in her mouth. She was pretty, but when she raised her brows, she looked a little devilish. Qin Mo didn't say anything. He watched as she ate until her hands were full. His eyes glanced at the salt and pepper prawns on the table. Without thinking much, he picked up a large prawn and placed it on the plate. His slender and fair fingers removed the shell, leaving only the prawn meat. Then, he placed it into the young man's bowl. Qin Mo's actions were natural and elegant. No matter how shocked the international director was, he didn't say anything. He only sighed in his heart that some people could really change their character when they fell in love. However, in the next second, his opinion changed. Because when the young man still wanted to eat meat, Qin Mo reached out to stop her. He placed 2 stalks of vegetables in her bowl and arched a brow. It was clear what he meant. If she didn't eat, there would be a physics test waiting for her. The Almighty's handsomeness was divided into 2 stages. When he was peeling the prawns for her, he looked very handsome. His entire person looked very attractive. Now, Bo Jiu looked at the 2 stalks of vegetables, lowering her head to take a bite. Her heart was filled with sweetness. She didn't expect that even though her pet had lost its memory, it didn't care about her at all. It wasn't that she didn't like eating vegetables. Humans stood at the top of the food chain. If they did not eat meat, they would feel sorry for themselves, right? Obviously, the Almighty didn't understand this logic when he was young. That was why every time he fed her, he would smash the leaves in her bowl and let her eat it with rice. At that time, she was a picky eater and didn't eat vegetables. Even her father couldn't do anything about her. After all, who wasn't a little devil? Later, when her father saw that she wasn't so picky anymore, he even pulled the young Almighty over and thanked him for a long time. However, the Almighty had always been cold and polite. "Uncle Bo, I'll take care of her in the future." She still remembered that her father paused for a moment, then laughed. "You'll have to ask her own opinion." Other than eating, what else can she say? It had to be said that the Almighty had a sharp tongue when he was young. But at that time, she really didn't have any objections. She had wanted to raise her pet for a long time. Of course, she would not miss such an opportunity. Even though he was the one who raised her in the end, when he thought about it carefully, she was also enduring hardships in order to gain courage. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. No matter how young she was, she understood the principle. Moreover, for some reason, she always felt that the food he fed her was tastier. Perhaps it was because every time he carefully pressed the egg yolk and vegetables into the bowl for her, and then stirred the new porridge, the boy she drank was very cute. That was why she wasn't picky about her food. The ancient saying that beauty was a feast for the eyes made sense. For example, just by looking at the Almighty's face, she could eat 2 more bowls of rice. Just like that, he accidentally ate too much for dinner. When she reached the 2nd floor, Bo Jiu realized that the Almighty was asking her to sleep on the same bed as him for the next 3 days. Although they had slept together before. However, 3 days was a little too long. Was it too late to regret now? Bo Jiu turned back, intending to discuss other conditions with the Almighty. Chapter 10:28. As long as Qin Mo stood there, he would be so elegant and handsome that people couldn't take their eyes off him. He exuded an aura of an immortal. Not to mention, when he leaned over, his eyes were deep and his lips were curved into a smile. The collar of his shirt was slightly crooked, hanging loosely. It looked extremely casual. He had been the school hunk of No. 1 middle school for 3 years, and until now, there hadn't been anyone who could surpass him. The Almighty indeed had an extraordinary charm. At this moment, there was a hint of wildness in his expression. He reached out to pinch Bo Jiu's chin, a faint smile on his face. What naughty thoughts are you having again? MMH? Don't worry, other than the pillow, I won't ask you to do anything else. My hand can't touch you, so you have to control yourself. My mom and the guest are here, so don't act like how you did when the doctor was around. Don't touch me while my hand is injured and behave yourself in other aspects, understand? Little gangster. At this moment, Bo Jiu didn't know how to react. The nickname Little Gangster. Brother Mo, you are the one who is touching me, not me. Bo Jiu pointed to her chin. Qin Mo arched a brow and released his hand. The youngster pulled her down and kissed her with a mischievous smile. But it's hard for me to not touch you. Bo Jiu wanted to kiss him and leave. But Qin Mo wasn't satisfied. He pulled her wrist over and pressed her down on the soft bed while she was breathing. He didn't hesitate to deepen the kiss. Bo Jiu wanted to resist. But he pressed her back with a single hand. He kissed her until she was in a daze. In the guest room, the youngster's t-shirt was half lifted, revealing her flawless waistline. The man's hand moved upwards, following the hem of her shirt. Then he paused. Someone was knocking on the door. Bo Jiu heard it too. She turned and stood up, her breath still a little faint. Qin Mo glanced at the youngster's flushed face, his voice raspy. Don't flirt with me if you don't have any intentions. All right. Bo Jiu replied nonchalantly. Her clothes were wrinkled and her lips were red. It wasn't a good idea to meet movie queenin like that. Hence, she turned towards Qin Mo. Brother Mo, open the door. Qin Mo adjusted his shirt, his tone calm. Why, you don't dare to admit it after teasing me. Bo Jiu, this is really depressing. Qin Mo probably liked to see her like this. He reached out and pinched her puffed-up face. Benefits. Even opening a door requires benefits? He had no choice but to bow his head when he was under someone else's roof. Bo Jiu replied, Speak. Don't go somewhere I can't see. Suddenly, Qin Mo let go of her face, his tone emotionless. Bo Jiu couldn't react in time. I'm here, I have to apply medicine for Brother Mo later. Where else can I go? Qin Mo glanced at the fair and tender youngster, his lips lifting into a smile. That's true, let's change it. You'll be the one reading the bedtime story tonight. That's it. Bo Jiu didn't believe it was that simple since the Almighty wasn't simple with her. Qin Mo asked leisurely, Why? You want to provide a special service. That gaze. Bo Jiu was helpless. I'll go pick a book. I'll pick one, you can go to the bathroom. Qin Mo stuffed a hand into his pocket, preparing to take a step. Bo Jiu tugged onto his sleeve. Let's go to the bathroom? Wash up and hide for a while. Qin Mo glanced over, his tone indiscernible. Didn't you want others to know about our relationship? Anyone can tell from your expression. Bo Jiu paused. She wasn't sure if the Almighty was angry. She hugged the pajamas that he threw at her and walked into the bathroom. She could vaguely hear the sound of the Almighty opening the door and movie Queen Anne's smile. Where's Joe? Bathing, Qin Mo replied naturally. Movie Queen Anne asked, do you need to arrange a room for Joe? She'll sleep in another room. It's inconvenient for me to sleep at night due to the pain in my hand. Qin Mo's voice sounds like it's true. Movie Queen Anne thought about it and didn't say anything else. She watched her son's face with a playful expression. It's rare for you to agree to Joe's acting. She had assumed her son would be a problem. Qin Mo chuckled, not saying anything. He wasn't agreeing to her acting, he just wanted to see what she was up to for her to go through so much trouble. All right, I won't disturb your rest, I still have to attend a ball with the director. Movie Queen Anne was elated since she was finally going to film with Joe. She reminded her son of certain things before boarding the commercial car. When Bo Jiu came out of the shower, Movie Queen Anne was already gone. This meant that other than Madame Zhang, she and Qin Mo were the only ones left. The youngster's skin was pale, probably because of the mosquito bites during dinner. After the shower, she couldn't help but reach out to scratch it. The left side of her face was red. Qin Mo frowned. He placed his phone down, his voice calm. Come over. Bo Jiu was still drying her hair. She walked over with a pure white towel on her head, looking no different from a high school student. She calculated her age. Someone's age should be the same as hers. Chapter 1029. Her superb camouflage technique was not in vain. However, in this world he should be the only one who knew. Z at some point was like a child. The corners of Qin Mo's lips curled up into a faint smile. Bo Jiu didn't understand. She walked over and stood beside the bed, watching the Almighty. Qin Mo reached out and pulled her over. His fingertips slid across her blushing face. What's going on? I was bitten by a mosquito. Bo Jiu wanted to scratch him again. Qin Mo blocked the youngster's actions and took out a small bottle of medicine from the drawer beside him. Bo Jiu had never seen the medicine before, but it smelled nice. It didn't seem like Western medicine but Chinese medicine. Qin Mo dipped a little and was about to use it on her face. Bo Jiu glanced at the Almighty's overly long lashes and felt a chill on her face. Then, she felt a comforting pinch and the area where she had been bitten wasn't as itchy anymore. Bo Jiu yawned, wanting to hug him to sleep. This kind of opportunity was hard to come by. After all, the Almighty was only using one hand. Qin Mo pushed the youngster away, his tone calm. What are you doing, little gangster? Brother Mo, didn't you ask me to sleep with you? I wanted to be your pillow. Bo Jiu's words were always laced with mischief. Her face was indeed ravishing, her silver hair messy and slightly damp. When she lifted her lips into a smile, her handsomeness made one's heart race. It might work on the girl but it might not work on Qin Mo. Qin Mo reached out to cover the bottle and glanced at Bo Jiu. Did you forget something? Didn't you just apply the medicine? Bo Jiu glanced down, her gaze landing on the white bandaged wrist. Does it hurt? Qin Mo flicked her forehead. It doesn't hurt. You're in charge of reading a bedtime story today. Have you forgotten? She really didn't take it to heart. She knew that her pet liked to read before going to bed, but he used to read to her. She had never read to him. Oh yes, once. When the Almighty asked her to read the novels in the Fu family's villa, it was a dark history for her and she didn't want to recall it. But it should be different this time. Since it was the Almighty who picked the book, the style should be online. Which one? Bo Jiu started to lift the blanket seriously. Qin Mo arched a brow at the youngster's actions. Before he could reply, Bo Jiu opened her mouth. Studying doesn't affect me as a pillow. I can hug you while reading. When Qin Mo heard that, he felt a little playful, even though the little gangster didn't call out again. Bo Jiu understood the Almighty's intentions but that didn't stop her from taking advantage of him. Her cold and aloof aura was already tempting. Bo Jiu's mood improved after hugging the person she wanted to hug. She smiled and asked, "What do you want to read?" This time, China Mo didn't push her away. But what puzzled Bo Jiu was that the Almighty didn't give her a famous book but a phone. Bo Jiu arched a brow. China Mo took the youngster's hand, pressed her fingers, and swiped the screen open. Read it. Pampered hedonistic concubine? Bo Jiu glanced at the extremely childish title. She hadn't expected the Almighty to have such a strange hobby. She opened the first chapter and the voice came out. It was originally calm like water, but when she read the plot about the main character reincarnating into another person, Bo Jiu paused. China Mo glanced over. Why? A little ridiculous. Bo Jiu's comment. It's a little ridiculous. Oh, China Mo replied. Isn't the plot on your bookshelf about how the male lead will fall in love with you if you splash water on his face? Brother Mo, how can it be the same? Bo Jiu smiled. Every overbearing CEO has a different hobby. At least it caught the main character's attention. Bo Jiu's fingers tapped on her phone as she spoke, an action she would only do when she was deep in thought. Why did the Almighty let her read such a book? Just as the question arose, China Mo shut his eyes. China Mo shut his eyes. Forget it. It's just a curiosity. Lin Feng recommended this book to me. I'll send one to him later. Her only advantage was her rebirth. As long as the Almighty couldn't figure it out, she wouldn't be exposed. Since Team Beauty Lin had recommended such a book to the Almighty, how could she not do it? She opened WeChat and typed the title, How Brothers Became Lovers. Very quickly, 2 words came from the other end. F***CK. Straight men usually couldn't read such books. Bo Jiu smiled faintly. Don't recommend such messy books to the Almighty in the future. Lin Feng's stomach wasn't hurting anymore. He sat in the living room eating. When he received the message, he was confused and was about to reply. Just then, another voice message came from the other end. When did you become so intimate with Little Spade? That voice was a little cold and carried a little laziness. But the word intimate came over. Lin Feng couldn't take it anymore, mainly because he knew how possessive his captain was. He immediately replied, Captain, it's like this. Little Spade would always harass me. Since that person is by your side, it's fine. Captain, you have to control this person. I'm still eating, so I won't be a third wheel. He held onto his phone and glanced at the youngster beside him who was rubbing the bridge of her nose. His lips lifted. Why do you always harass Lin Feng? I'm concerned about his relationship with Almighty Yun. Bo Jiu was serious. China Mo tossed the phone to the side, smiling faintly. You should be more concerned about our relationship. Yun who will definitely leave the country. No one can stop him. Bo Jiu stilled. She didn't realize the Almighty was destroying the evidence. In reality, Lin Feng had never recommended any books to the Almighty. As a straight man, why would he read a romance novel like Exploding Spoiled Hedonist Concubine? If he wanted to read one, he would at least choose one that was more magnanimous. But at this moment, when he saw the title, How Brothers Became Lovers that Little Spade had sent over, he had the urge to search the place. Had he really gone mad? He and Yun who were already in this state. Yun who was going to leave the country. He had to be more mature. Just like what he had said, he had to be able to differentiate between certain problems. The night sky was getting darker. Lin Feng lifted his head and glanced outside. He had long noticed that the lights in the bedroom opposite his had never been turned on since the beginning. This meant that Yun who was still in the hotel with that person. He probably wasn't coming back today. That was right. Lin Feng chuckled. In the end, he didn't search for any books. Instead, he opened some financial articles on his computer and wore his glasses. He was about to move out of the courtyard. If he didn't want to be left behind, he had to work hard. He wasn't suited for politics. Chapter 10:30. In the master bedroom of the Qin family. Bo Jiu's thoughts were on Yun whose plans to leave the country. She didn't ask Lin Feng about the book. She guessed that it was probably a coincidence. After all, this was a novel where the main character would be reborn. But this coincidence wasn't as safe as it seemed. Bo Jiu was on high alert. China Mo watched the youngster's expression and chuckled silently. Such a subtle test was easy to get someone to listen to him. Qin Mo didn't miss the pause when Bo Jiu read about the rebirth plot. Naturally, he didn't miss her probing gaze when she glanced at him. He turned his face over, his nose tall and handsome. "Why do you keep looking at me like that? Do you want me to do something?" It was rare that Bo Jiu didn't tease him. Instead, she hugged his waist and changed the topic. "Brother Mo, what did you mean when you said Almighty Yun was going to leave the country? He's going alone?" Qin Mo watched the youngster's eyes. He didn't ask if she was preparing to leave the country alone. Instead, he replied faintly, "MH." Bo Jiu arched a brow. "I thought they would be together no matter what." She was used to seeing the two of them being inseparable. Moreover, it was rare to see brothers who had been together since they were young. Even after they entered university, they were still in the same dormitory. Bo Jiu had always felt that it was just a matter of time before they got together. She hadn't expected such an outcome. But in certain aspects, she understood Lin Feng well. Lin Feng was really a straight man, the straight and honest kind. But he wasn't naive. He was much more than what he looked like on the surface. Some people were only suited to be brothers and not lovers. He couldn't take that step because of his family's concerns and uncertainty. An ordinary boyfriend and girlfriend could break up easily. But for childhood friends, once they started dating, they would have to think about many things. Besides, Lin Feng couldn't accept a boy. Because he had the strongest sense of family amongst the members of Supreme Alliance. Even if it didn't seem that way. But from the way he handled things, it was clear what he was thinking. He cared about his parents far more than himself. It wasn't easy for such a person to turn gay. But Bo Jiu never expected Yun Hu to be the first to give up. From Bo Jiu's point of view, Lin Feng treated Yun Hu much better than the fans thought. What a pity. Bo Jiu shook her head but was stopped by Qin Mo. He arched a brow. "You're not sleeping?" "Sleep." Bo Jiu smiled, hugging his waist once more. For someone like the Almighty, who had both good looks and a good figure, it wasn't a big deal for him to be a little cold. That was normal. He was always as gentle as water. She felt that the Almighty was doubting her again. But it didn't matter. Once she kidnapped him, everything would be settled. That night, Bo Jiu slept exceptionally well. Qin Mo was the same. Ever since he had a certain someone, he never had nightmares again. When she woke up, she looked down at the youngster who was hugging her waist. "What are you trying to do?" His voice was low and deep. After he finished speaking, Qin Mo's gaze deepened. Back then when they fought, someone had been helping her the whole time. If it wasn't someone else, he would have known what Z looked like earlier. This time, it was the same at the commercial plaza. The man who appeared on the battle axe. If that was the case, everything made sense. Young Master Fu didn't know Hoshino. Because Z was the one who knew Hoshino. Qin Mo glanced at the youngster in his arms, suppressing the anger that was surging out. At this moment, his phone lit up. It was a famous psychologist in the military. "I heard from Madam that you're in a relationship." Qin Mo took the phone over and pressed a message. "What do you want to say? Just say it." "I just want to understand your current psychological state. Qin Mo, you're the expert in this field. If you don't want to, even I can't treat you. But I'm really curious, why are you interested in a relationship?" The psychologist wore a white coat, glancing at the facilities in the military. "I can't imagine." Qin Mo's gaze was calm, just like what Bo Jiu had said, filled with a celestial aura. "I'm currently in a good state. There aren't any signs of violence. If you want to ask about this, you can wash up and sleep. I told you I wouldn't accept such missions. You can see through everything I say." The psychologist threw his pen on the table. "Boss, when are you planning to return to the military?" "I don't have any plans at the moment." These 5 words were extremely cold. The psychiatrist was very upset. He had asked Magician to leave, but he was the only one who stayed. But, he raised his eyes and looked at the man standing in front of him. "General Qin, you've heard it too. Your son, my boss. Your son is my boss, and if he isn't willing, no one will be able to understand his heart." The man was dressed in a military uniform, his hands wrapped in white gloves. He already had a big son, but because of his face, it didn't seem that big at all. Instead, he smiled lightly, exuding the aura of a superior. Since that's the case, Start your weight-bearing training. Even if you can't understand my son's heart, you can still help to enlighten the new recruits. In terms of training, I have high hopes for you. Psychologist. Why did he feel that his message to boss was a trap? Deputy Zhang followed behind General Qin and asked probingly, General, are you worried that young master is still affected by the previous incident? The man paused for a moment. How much do you know about the incident in Jiang City? A case similar to that year has appeared again. When Deputy Zhang spoke, there was an unknown fear in his eyes. After all, that mission had left a deep impression on him. However, I heard that Z really came out and things are going well. The man pinched his brows. Jiang City is fine, but there are problems within the major crime division. I'm not sure about the other cities, especially the cities near the borders. The military hasn't found a suitable candidate for this mission. General, you want young master to return. Deputy Zhang's eyes lit up. The man tilted his head. The traces of time on his body condensed on his shoulders. When he came back from the mission, many people suspected that he was hypnotized by the organization at that time. That's why he wasn't suitable for missions outside the borders. Moreover, he wasn't in the right state back then. He had never seen his son in such a state. He looked at his hands in a daze, his expression devoid of any other emotions. No matter who called him, he didn't respond. It was indeed as though he had been hypnotized. As a father, as well as the highest commander, General Qin's heart was tormented. But even so, everything was based on the country. This was the basic standard of a soldier. Chapter 1031. No matter what happened, there are always people who have to carry some burdens, so that we can live peacefully in a place without the flames of war. Many people were envious of China. They said that this was the only country that didn't have to worry about war. The sunrise was the same every day. Jiang City's mornings were filled with life. Even beside the courtyard, there would be a classic alley. In the alley, there would be freshly baked golden youtiao with soy milk or tofu pudding. One bite would make one sweat, but it was satisfying. But today, the boss saw that Lin Feng was the only one eating breakfast. He chuckled and asked, "Do you want one person's portion today?" "Mate," Lin Feng replied vaguely. The boss wiped the table and placed the food on it before turning to take the youtiao. When Lin Feng lowered his head to drink the soy milk, he smiled. He wasn't used to it, but who didn't live like this? But it was a coincidence because this was the closest way to enter the courtyard. Cabs wouldn't drive in. Hence, when Lin Feng raised his head to take the youtiao, he saw Yunhu, who hadn't returned all night, walking over. When Yunhu saw him, he paused. The boss laughed. "There are obviously two people. All right, I'll take another portion, the usual?" He turned to ask Yunhu. "MH," Yunhu replied. Then he stuffed one hand into his pocket and walked over, sitting opposite Lin Feng. In reality, Lin Feng wasn't prepared to see Yunhu so soon. But the other party acted as though nothing had happened. It wasn't appropriate for him to mention yesterday's incident. He didn't speak, lowering his head to drink another mouthful of soy milk. When the boss served the youtiao, he was shocked. What was going on with these two? In the past, when they sat here, they couldn't even finish their sentences, especially the one with fair skin. The boss was referring to Lin Feng. Yunhu was looking at him too. Then he turned his head and lit a cigarette. "How was your sleep yesterday?" "It was all right." Lin Feng looked up. "Smoking the moment you woke up?" Yunhu rubbed his eyes and smiled. "It's refreshing." When Lin Feng heard this word, he didn't know what expression to make. Indeed, he looked like he had been tormented the whole night. He could only smile. Otherwise, no matter what he said, he would end up like an idiot just like yesterday. Yunhu watched his smile, lowered his head slowly, and drank a mouthful of soy milk. Just like before, the two of them sat at the same stall and ate breakfast, but the atmosphere was completely different. Perhaps Lin Feng also realized that he couldn't let the atmosphere get too awkward. He bit his fried dough stick and asked, "I heard from Auntie that you've already booked your plane ticket?" "MH." Yunhu had always been a man of few words. "We'll be flying in 2 weeks." Lin Feng sighed. The world of the top students. When you go there, Remember to send me anything good. I'm not picky. At this moment, Yun, who seemed to have recovered his composure. I know. Lin Feng didn't say anything else. He swallowed the fried dough stick with the last mouthful of soy milk. After he was done, he stuffed his hands into his pockets and waited for Yun Hu. The two of them entered the courtyard together. When it was time to enter the house, Yun Hu paused. You really aren't leaving the country? No. Lin Feng smiled. Why? Yun Hu. Nothing. Lin Feng. That person last night. When he saw Yun Hu's gaze sweeping over, Lin Feng explained, I mean, it's not bad, I can go overseas with you. They are more lenient in this aspect, but you have to be careful, don't let your family scare auntie and uncle. Yun Hu didn't know why he laughed, but there wasn't a hint of a smile in his eyes. Firstly, your evaluation of others is not bad, they are quite obedient. That's good. Lin Feng's stomach no longer hurt. He reached out and patted his shoulder. I wish you happiness. I'll go in first, I'm still sleepy. Yun Hu replied again. All right. But he stood in the same spot without leaving. Lin Feng took 2 steps and turned back. Is there anything else? You should find a girlfriend, right? Yun Hu's voice was faint. Lin Feng frowned. I don't have such plans. Find one soon. Yun Hu chuckled lightly. Hey, Lin Feng replied. Don't drag me into the pit when you're no longer single. I enjoy my current state. Let's talk about it later. Yun Hu still didn't move. This time, Lin Feng didn't turn back because Mother Lin had woken up. My mom is calling me. She must be asking me to play music for her. Lin Feng lifted his head and glanced at the Lin family, smiling at Yun Hu. I'm going in. He really walked in. He probably didn't want to see the person who hadn't slept the entire night. Were all youngsters so demanding? Lin Feng laughed, his hair covering his face, the corners of his lips sinking. Hey, is Huzi outside? Mother Lin asked. Lin Feng reached out to stop her. He went back to catch up on his sleep. Empress Dowager, I think you should have breakfast first. Sure, play a song. Mother Lin was a straightforward person. Lin Feng took her phone and started searching. Mother Lin glanced at her son, then at Yun Hu, who stood outside for a while before turning to leave. Little Feng, are you bullying Hu? What are you thinking? Lin Feng turned on the music. Mother Lin felt that something was wrong. Hu usually comes in with you, but today, he didn't even enter the door. Besides, the two of you didn't come back together last night. If you didn't bully him, what did you do? Empress Dowager, I'm innocent. Lin Feng wanted to dismiss his mother with a sentence. But Mother Lin was a perceptive person. Tell me, what exactly happened? Lin Feng obviously wouldn't tell her the truth, but he couldn't go upstairs like that. He beautified the incident yesterday. I'll tell you. Keep it a secret. Speak. Mother Lin's face was stern. Lin Feng smiled. Nothing much. Who has a girlfriend and asked me to cover for him. Yesterday, he went karaoke with her and just came back. He's very tired and wants to go back to sleep. Empress Dowager, you're thinking too much. Girlfriend. Mother Lin was shocked. Who has a girlfriend? Lin Feng replied. Mother Lin was still in disbelief. Who has a girlfriend? Why does it feel so surreal? So many people in the courtyard have tried, but he didn't agree. It's free love now, it's as awkward as you said. Lin Feng was speaking the truth. Mother Lin shook her head. Who has always been more scheming than you? He's going overseas. How can he have a girlfriend? His girlfriend is going overseas too. She's going to the same school as him, Lin Feng replied. Mother Lin replied. That's good. Lin Feng smiled as he went upstairs. There was no more chatter. Only music. Someone was singing. I know you left too early, but I still wish you a long life together. All good things must come to an end. This sentence wasn't just suitable for Yun Hu, it seemed to apply to Supreme Alliance as well. The Asian esports competition was half a month later. But due to some practical considerations, the final name list hadn't been decided. Regardless of whether it was Supreme Alliance or Xiangnan, it didn't seem right to send either team. According to the rules, It was always the national champion. But as the esports competition became more intense, China started to pay more attention to it. They couldn't lose too badly in the Asian esports competition. Hence, the committee was still considering. The fans were worried sick for the votes, all for the team in their hearts. But they didn't know. Supreme Alliance seemed to be fulfilling the wish of the past. To win back the glory of the past, to not let down the people who had supported and liked them. Now, the dust had settled. They would probably do their own things. Feng Yi was the one who understood the current situation of the team the most. When the media came for an interview, he basically rejected all that he could. But there was still a video on the internet. It was a video from many years ago, when Qin Mo had just entered the esports industry and won the Best Newcomer King. Some people said that Almighty Qin was so tender, handsome and noble that it gave off a murderous aura. Can you tell us how you fell in love with gaming? This was the host's question. Qin Mo glanced at the camera. When I was young, there was a guy who loved to play games. Which means you came to play games because of that person. The host seemed to have caught the scent of gossip. Qin Mo's voice was calm but firm. Yes. For a moment, the host didn't know how to continue. She thought he would deny it, but he admitted it so readily. Hence, she was stunned. The video had awakened the memories of many old fans of Qin Mo. At that time, they had been wondering who the guy that their Almighty was talking about was. But from what their Almighty had said, they should be childhood friends. But for a childhood friend to become an esports player, this relationship was too unusual. Hence, they had searched within the industry and finally found Xiao Jing. That was how the Qin and Xiao couple came to be. But now that they thought about it, they always doubted the existence of that person. Almighty Qin's love life could be said to be lacking until Spade Z's appearance. They were even more suspicious that Almighty Qin had made up an excuse to avoid trouble. But the new fans didn't seem to know the reason, which was why the video became popular again. Someone even tagged Bo Jiu. Big Spade, you have to watch Almighty Qin, he might climb the wall. Climbing the wall means breaking Almighty Qin's legs. It's impossible in this lifetime. So Big Spade, my condolences. But if you look again, the Almighty at that time was really young and arrogant. He's still arrogant now. When Big Spade is around, he's still very gentle. She was tagged on the official Weibo. Chapter 1032. On the screen was the Almighty's younger self. It was the fight at the Fifth Avenue. She hadn't taken a close look at the Almighty's appearance. Hence, her memory was filled with his proud and independent figure, as well as the time he had grabbed her wrist, the beautiful curve of his chin amidst the broken light. Now, the Almighty from so many years ago was in front of her. Her attention wasn't on his cold and handsome face. Instead, it was on his words. When I was young, there was a youngster who loved to game. Which means you're gaming because of that person. Yes. When he said the last word, he looked into the camera. He looked like a youngster with thin lips and a high nose bridge. His eyes so dark they seemed to glow. Bo Jiu gulped. When they had been young, he hadn't gamed often and had spent most of his time with her. When she had brought the keyboard over, she had shown him the simple code she had written. It was a small game that could be operated by pressing the up and down buttons. Her heart had been filled with joy. Afterward, he had wiped her hands and told her that he could play with her but she couldn't play with others. If she got dirty and rubbed herself against him, he wouldn't like it. This was easy to achieve. Hence, in the afternoon, she had plugged in the keyboard and set up a game target. The two of them had played the King of Fighters together. She could still remember his question. You like it? MMH. At that time, she had been looking at his prideful and fair face and had blurted out that she liked it. She hadn't expected the Almighty to think that she liked the game. Bo Jiu's fingers pressed down on the mouse, pausing on the interview. She rewound slightly and listened to the two sentences again. After listening to it 3 to 4 times, her lips curved upwards. She looked at the comments from her fans. Bo Jiu took a long time to suppress the words, I'm the one who loves to game, the one the Almighty can't forget. What are you doing? A voice drifted into her ears, elegant with a hint of laziness. It was slow and deep, but it was enough to send chills down her spine. Bo Jiu pressed the word she had typed and closed Weibo. She glanced up with a smile. browsing the internet. With her movements, the loose collar slid down, revealing the skin underneath. It was porcelain white and smooth, the shade of his collarbone just right. It was beautiful, just like milk. Qin Mo seemed to have just taken a shower. He hadn't dried his hair, and it was dripping wet. When he saw this scene, his gaze deepened. "Come here." The young man didn't move, his hand still holding the mouse. Qin Mo walked over, reaching out to pull her clothes up. "Mind your image, Mrs. Qin." Hearing these 3 words again, Bo Jiu blushed and changed the topic. "What did Madame Zhang do?" "Xiaolongbao with bean meat." Qin Mo arched a brow. "Why? You don't like it?" Bo Jiu reached out and hugged him. "I like it." Qin Mo's fingers paused for a moment. His gaze was a little dim. No one knew what he was thinking. 2 people came up from downstairs. The steaming soup dumplings had just come out of the oven. Although it was called xiaolongbao, it was steamed at home, and it was many times more delicious than the ones outside. The surface was soft and chewy, and when the filling was bitten, it left a fragrant taste in the mouth. She thought that 1 basket was enough for the 2 of them. But in the end, when Madame Zhang saw the youngster biting on the last meat bun, she raised her head and asked if she had any more. That was when Madame Zhang realized that she had made too little for breakfast. "I'll steam another basket now," Madame Zhang said. Qin Mo replied, "There's no need. She'll have a stomachache when she's full." Bo Jiu was still greedy. She lay there, full of energy. Qin Mo felt that this scene was a little familiar, but he couldn't pinpoint where he had seen it before. But the person in front of him seemed to have shrunk a lot. She was still muttering, "Momo, can you let me eat another meat bun?" "I'll eat another one." "You've said this 5 times. It was his voice. "Ah, you gave me all 5. I don't need a 6th one." 6666. This number is auspicious. Auspicious. The little fellow was always reasonable. He didn't speak, his fingers pressing on her round tummy. He only said 2 words. "Shut up." The image was blurry and ethereal, as though it didn't exist. Qin Mo's mind went blank for a moment. When he turned back, the youngster was tugging on his sleeve. Her eyes filled with worry. "Is your hand hurting again?" Compared to a certain someone, he didn't care much about his hand. "It doesn't hurt." Qin Mo placed his chopsticks down, freeing his other hand to press her hand down and hold it in his own. They even had to hold hands while eating. Madame Zhang really didn't know what to say. She tried her best not to disturb them. She placed the food down with a smile and walked into the kitchen. She sent a voice message to Movie Queen and, "Madam, don't worry. There's nothing wrong with young Master Jiu." Movie Queen and calmed down slightly when she saw the message. She was worried about Moer's psychological problems. She heard that Jiang City had just calmed down, but the overall situation wasn't good. Even without her husband's words, Movie Queen and could vaguely sense that something was wrong. Otherwise, that person wouldn't have appeared for so many days and even sent someone to protect her. Movie Queen and was fine, but her son was the main problem. She was worried that the case from that year wasn't over. Time passed slowly. Especially for a university. Ever since the live broadcast at the square, the police had their eyes on a certain university. Some were grumbling, some were afraid, as though something was about to happen. In the canteen, many were discussing it. "Ha! Fanjia, why don't you look afraid?" Someone asked the student beside her. Fanjia chuckled. "What's there to be afraid of? Which student in a university isn't outstanding? The police are probably anxious to solve the case. That's why they believe the comments online. Besides, this has nothing to do with us." After hearing what she said, someone frowned. "I don't think it's completely unrelated. Don't you watch the news? That person has done so many terrible things. Not only did he encourage others to commit suicide, but he also instigated others to infringe on copyright. In the end, he even killed the original author. Isn't that a terrible thing? What we need to do now is to cooperate with the police. Honestly, regardless of whether it's someone from a university, I hope to catch the culprit as soon as possible. I have a feeling that the culprit is inhumane." Chapter 1033. There are so many murderers in the world. Why aren't you so righteous? What's wrong with you today? Fan Jia chuckled lightly. I only said one sentence. Why did you say so much? The girl glanced at her. There are many murderers, but no matter how many there are, it's still wrong. Besides, this isn't about righteousness. It's the foundation of being human. Heh. Fan Jia chuckled. All right, it's something so far away, why are you thinking about it? Fan Jia isn't wrong. Ever since Z's live stream, the police have been investigating every day. It's so annoying and the others are brainless, messing up the school. Do you think Z has a grudge with the murderer? He didn't kill him, why is he so meddlesome? Everything was fine at first. Everything was fine. The girl stopped eating, her brows furrowing. She couldn't understand what was wrong with her two classmates. Wasn't it right to arrest the murderer? If it hadn't been for the live stream, the murdered author wouldn't have been able to seek redress. If it hadn't been for the protection of the police, the murderer hiding in their school would have acted long ago. They wouldn't have known who the next victim would be. If it hadn't been for everyone's combined strength, some truths and grievances would have been buried in the darkness forever, never to see the light of day. Why did all good deeds have a different flavor when spoken by two people? The girl felt a chill in her heart. It was an indescribable chill. She even questioned herself why people were like this. For example, the girl who had advised her just now. She had been bright and innocent when she entered school. Even though she liked to go with the flow, she hadn't said anything like that. What did it mean to have a grudge against the murderer? Exposing and arresting such an inhumane murderer was the only way to protect everyone. The girl was an ordinary person. She didn't have the ability to do so. She was thankful for those who had the ability and were willing to risk their lives to do so. It was written in a book. When you opened your eyes every day to the bustling traffic, it was the most ordinary peaceful era. It was a place where blood was exchanged. Why did they blame the people who bled but not the murderer? The girl couldn't understand. When her roommate brought up another case, she shrugged her shoulders. Also, as a passerby, let's talk about the original author you mentioned earlier. She's already dead. So what? Why did she have to go against the copyright infringers? Isn't she a little too petty? Besides, didn't you notice that after this incident, the sales of her books increased? I'm not saying that she's trying to create hype, but that's the truth. Not only is it morally impermissible, it's also the same from a legal perspective. That's the root of the matter. Also, you didn't say that the original work was hyping things up, but that's what you meant. Since it's so offensive, don't pretend to judge others. I don't think we're suited to be friends anymore. Your arguments are too scary, so you better watch out. It was indeed terrifying. The girl couldn't tell what was wrong. She knew that he used to be a person without any ideas. But after sleeping with Fan Jia, he seemed to have changed. It was as though he had been influenced by Fan Jia to the point where his entire being was distorted. She wasn't sure if this was normal, but she instinctively wanted to distance herself. Fan Jia watched the girl's back view, breaking into a smile. She comforted the angry classmate beside her. Why are you arguing with her? Let her speak if she wants to. She doesn't have any aura at all. She's completely different from you. The classmate broke into a smile. Indeed, it's boring. Oh right, Fan Jia. Many people joined the chat group you asked me to create previously. I named it Spade Z and it attracted a lot of fans, but some people suspected that I wasn't a fan of Spade Z. Thankfully, the friends in the group helped me and now, everyone has the same opinion. You're too smart. Just a few words and they changed their minds. That's how it should be. Some people have nothing better to do. If they want to kill someone, then so be it. What has it got to do with us? I had the same thoughts as you, that's why I asked you to create the group. But you have to understand that some people are troublesome, hence, it's better to keep the group a secret. Fan Jia's mood finally lifted. We have to clear a university's name. That's right. The classmate was filled with fighting spirit. Helping a tyrant to do evil had become a way to clear their name. In reality, if it wasn't for such people, Fan Jia wouldn't have known how to escape. The crime squad that Z had recruited made it impossible for her to do anything else. That wasn't all. Every time she touched the computer, someone would record it. The maiden's sacrifice had been interrupted. Not only had she lost 2 helpers, but she had also lost the endless supply of goods. Her brother's plan back then was to control people's thoughts and make use of them. She majored in psychology, just like Qin Mo. She could tell a person's thoughts from their actions. Those who liked Spade Z had joined the private chat group even though they knew about the announcement. This meant that they only cared about their likes and didn't care about hurting others. This way the foundation would be laid. She would follow their thoughts and give them a few hints. Those people would become her invisible helpers. As long as she tore open this hole and used the group to influence them, planting a seed in their hearts, a university would become hers in the future. If the crime squad found out something, it would be Spade Z's fault since the group was created under his name. After Fan Jia was done, the organization urged her twice but she didn't return. Instead, she gave them a call. Let's wait for a few more days. What are you waiting for? If you don't leave now, you might be found. Chapter 1034. Your brother hypnotized Qin Mo? That person was in disbelief. Qin Mo has always been an expert in psychology. That's why he was the one who solved that case. After all, they were both studying abroad. Your brother's grades were always lower than Qin Mo's. That's the truth. Besides, the Qin family has been the same for generations. They aren't affected by external factors. How could your brother hypnotize Qin Mo? Fan Jia, it's true that we're working together, but don't you dare use your tricks on me. Fan Jia knew that ever since Z had appeared, the old man had been afraid. He had been cautious when helping her and now, he was even giving her a warning. Heh, this is such an important trump card. Do you think I would lie? Fan Jia stood in the darkness, her eyes looking into the distance. She spoke slowly. I have Z to thank for this. If it wasn't for her, Qin Mo wouldn't be in so much pain. The hypnosis was planted by my brother before he died. At that time, Qin Mo was in a state of mental breakdown. Naturally, he wouldn't be guarded against my brother. Besides, based on what I know, not only did Qin Mo stop working on cases, his memory is also in a mess. When the time is right, I can make use of this. Are you still anxious? There was a moment of silence. You have interacted with Qin Mo in the past and understand him. I still have the same advice. Don't be too reckless. If it wasn't for me covering up for your 2 partners, you would be in a much more dangerous situation. The crime squad is starting to investigate the Rao family's case. Once the truth comes to light, I will be implicated and Rao Rong's statement will be detrimental to both of us. Fan Jia's gaze deepened. That's why you should have buried Rao Rong when you were working on that case. I've advised you before, you think you can do whatever you want with your power. He's just a high school student. How dare you talk to me about this now? The person on the other end was obviously furious. How many times have I told you to let Rao Rong off and he wouldn't retaliate? In the end, you cooperated with the club and chased him out of the team, leaving him with no place in the esports industry. Do you know how much effort I had to put in to avoid him? Fortunately, I didn't appeal to the higher-ups. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to climb to my current position. Yet, you didn't learn from your mistakes and insisted on using him. Fan Jia narrowed her eyes. It's all in the past. Let's not talk about it anymore. Back then, I looked for him when he was in despair. Who knew he would break free from my control? In the end, it was all because of Z. She actually didn't die. I find it suspicious. It doesn't matter if it's strange or not. The person seemed to be tired of the current situation. The problem now is that she's back. Once Z returns, your internet skills won't be enough. Fan Jia hated to hear such words. There are many things that can't be solved with internet skills. No matter how impressive Z is, she can't guarantee what others think. I've been in a university for so long, I'm prepared. Didn't I say that even if I leave now, the seeds I leave behind will sprout in some people's hearts? What did you do to the people in a university? The person on the other end frowned. We had a deal when we cooperated. You can't be like your brother. Fan Jia laughed. I said, how can I not be like my brother? How can I make use of everyone around me? Didn't you know from the start? It's too late to act surprised now. It wasn't just a university. There were many 14-year-olds. I have to thank them, otherwise, my plan wouldn't have gone so smoothly. I used Z to commit crimes and they imagined themselves to be whoever they liked. They took their names and used it to attract popularity. That's the type of person I need. It's much easier to control now compared to my brother. After all, no one is clean, including you. You! The person on the other side of the phone was furious. For a moment, he regretted working with the other party, but he had already come this far. He could only move forward and not retreat. Forget it, as long as you are confident. Fan Jia's gaze dimmed. Of course I'm confident. Rao Rong wasn't around anymore. She could create another Rao Rong. It was time for the youngster who liked to stick to Qin Mo to suffer. 10 p.m., at the Qin family's house. In order to show her sincerity, Bo Jiu fished out her wallet and placed it on Qin Mo's hand. The Almighty sat on the sofa with one hand wrapped in bandages. There was a book on Sun Tzu's Art of War and a pot of tea on the table. Bo Jiu always said that the Almighty had an immortal aura around him, and it wasn't without reason. The moment he sat there, he looked like a noble young master. When he saw the wallet the youngster placed on his hand, Qin Mo arched a brow, his gaze calm. What's the meaning of this? Are you flaunting your wealth? Bo Jiu laughed, stuffing a hand into her pocket. She lowered her body, a mischievous smile on her face. Brother Mo's sugar daddy. Qin Mo paused. Bo Jiu smiled brightly, waiting to see his reaction. It was a pity that Qin Mo was still scheming. You're giving me too little. A few hundred isn't even worth a meal. Do you know how much it costs outside? Bo Jiu arched a brow. There's a market for that? What else? Qin Mo's long fingers tapped the wallet. Bo Jiu knelt down, a smile on her face. Brother Mo, how much is it? $1 million for a meal, Qin Mo replied calmly. Bo Jiu muttered, that's too expensive. It was better to just kidnap him. Tell me, what do you want with your wallet? Qin Mo fiddled with the wallet, something flashing past his eyes. Bo Jiu stood up, dressed in a pure white shirt and long pants. With her silver hair, she looked like a prince that had fallen to the mortal world. I want to settle some matters at home before I head overseas, in case someone bullies Madam He when I'm not around. I'll leave my identity card with Brother Mo to prove that I'm a legitimate pretty boy. Qin Mo reached out to pour himself a cup of tea, his face handsome as he spoke nonchalantly. From what you're saying, you aren't coming back after going overseas? Bo Jiu paused, her lips lifting. If I'm filming a movie, I won't be staying there for long. With my mother around, I can't travel far. Since I have my own matters to attend to, I can only let those who can harm my mother rest before I leave. Just rest? Qin Mo glanced up, his deep gaze meeting the youngster's face. Chapter 1035. After listening to the youngster, Qin Mo took a sip of tea. Qin Mo took a sip of tea and said faintly, empty shares. His words hit the nail on the head. Bo Jiu enjoyed chatting with the Almighty because there wasn't a need to explain things clearly. It was relaxing. Unexpectedly, the Almighty's next sentence was a twist. Is that all you're capable of? Her cold tone carried the unique arrogance of a person in a superior position. The aura of a CEO was evident. Bo Jiu recalled what the Almighty used to say in the business world. It could be summed up in one sentence. Brother Mo society, you're beautiful and rich. She should be able to learn from him. Brother Mo, if you have any good ideas, I can buy them. The youngster pointed to her wallet with a bright smile. Qin Mo lifted his finger. You want me to give you ideas for such a small amount of money? I know you're expensive, Bo Jiu replied seriously. Can I give you a friendship price? Qin Mo hooked his finger at the youngster. He had an ancient aura and was full of asceticism. Bo Jiu followed his movements and leaned forward. His deep voice rang in her ears. As your husband, I can teach you a few moves. As for the friendship price, I don't have it here. Do you want it? I'm already leaning in and you're asking me if I want it? Also, what the hell was that, husband? You're a modern person. Why are you talking about ancient literature? You seem more like someone who has been reborn than me. Bo Jiu's ears turned red as she thought about it. Compared to controlling their shares, Sending them home to retire would make them feel worse. Qin Mo finally returned to the tone of a modern person. He looked at the youngster's face, which was so clean that even his hair could be seen, and kissed it. Bo Jiu was still seriously learning from him. She hadn't expected the side of her face to be touched. By the time she realized what it was already too late. The reflection on the glass window caught the youngster's slender figure stiffening. Even her eyes moved. Her lashes were long and she looked slightly dazed. Bo Jiu stuffed a hand into her pocket, her other hand pressed against the seat. She had originally been prepared to tease him, but now, it was a completely different situation. "Brother Mo, just speak, don't touch me, you're making a mistake." Qin Mo watched the youngster's serious expression and smiled. "What mistake do you want to make? This was considered seduction, right? The Almighty was simply a demon." Bo Jiu endured for a long time, not wavering in front of his beauty. She couldn't tell anyone that she wanted to kidnap the Almighty. Questions that were difficult to answer were all replaced with silence is golden. Qin Mo raised his hand to glance at the time. "The Qin Group's legal consultant has already gone to your company. He has some documents that I prepared for you. You can take a look at them when you are free." Chapter 1036. Both Qin Mo and Bo Jiu understood the meaning written on Madame Zhang's face. It wasn't because Bo Jiu was well-versed in micro-expressions, but Madame Zhang's expression was obvious and she couldn't help but feel happy about the misunderstanding. Bo Jiu smiled faintly as she straightened her back. Her silver hair fell down and the pure black earrings on her ears gave off a clean and handsome aura. When he walked towards Auntie Zhang, he also had a magnanimous and aggressive look. On the other hand, Qin Mo had been frowning. Madame Zhang shook her head. She looked as though she had understood. She placed the red bean snacks down and glanced at her young master. At this moment, Qin Mo broke into a smile. He glanced at the youngster who had just finished his naughty deed. His tone calm. "If you aren't back in 2 hours, I will head to the Fu family's house personally. Brother Mo, with your current status, it isn't suitable for you to mingle with a small organization like the Fu family, really." In order to prevent herself from being carried back, Bo Jiu had to stop him. Qin Mo replied. "Oh?" He raised his voice. "I don't really care. Bo Jiu." There was no way to continue the conversation. In the end, when the youngster left, Qin Mo stood up. When he sent her out, his gaze was so deep that Bo Jiu felt that something wasn't right. Just as she was deep in thought, her phone rang. Bo Jiu glanced at the chauffeur. She didn't pick up the call. After hanging up, she sent a message. "There's a change in plans." The 4 words made Hoshino, who was lying on the balcony, sit up. The sun shone on his back, and even his white shirt seemed to be emitting a gentle glow. His slender fingers pressed on it. "How did it change?" "I will be going overseas with Qin Mo tomorrow to act in a movie. I can use this opportunity to escape." Bo Jiu's gaze wasn't fixed on her phone when she typed. Her arms hung down naturally. Even if the chauffeur was sitting in front, he wouldn't notice her message. Hoshino caressed his black hair, his smile warm. "MMH, it's convenient overseas." "There's a little inconvenient." Bo Jiu took a moment before sending the message. Hoshino walked towards the computer. "What is it?" "I want to kidnap Qin Mo." Since they had started, the next step was straightforward. When Hoshino saw the line of words on his phone, his hand that was about to touch the teacup suddenly stopped. Even his expression was a little different than usual. It was rare to see the vice captain like this. The youth stood there dumbfounded. What was going on? Could it be that the vice captain wasn't satisfied with his performance just now? He did die once, but that was a 1v5. The baby-faced youth was still trembling. Although the vice captain had a good temper, the better the temper, the more chills they would feel when they were disciplining you. What he imagined didn't happen. The youth saw the vice captain put down the teacup in his hand and paused for a moment. Then he pressed the phone a few times as if he was replying to someone's message. The baby-faced man didn't understand. Yu Cixin sat there with his long legs crossed. His black hair fell down. He was devilishly handsome. Someone isn't feeling good. When Hoshino heard that, he didn't say anything. He couldn't say that he didn't feel good. But he didn't expect Z to like Qin Mo so much that she wanted to kidnap him. In Hoshino's heart, that person would always be lonely. Even when he was by her side, it was the same. She lived a carefree and sunny life. No matter how many people she interacted with, it never changed. When she was injured, she wouldn't cry out in pain. But every time when she was quiet, she would stare outside in a daze. She had never really wanted anything. Except for this time. Hoshino couldn't describe how he felt. Just then, another message appeared on his phone. I know it's difficult. If you don't do it well, your identity might be exposed. I'm worried that Qin Mo is already suspicious of you. Don't make a move and stay in the team. Hoshino frowned slightly after reading the message. You will be in danger. It's equally dangerous for two people. Bo Jio's hand paused. Then she added, Don't worry. Hoshino reached out and rubbed his temples. He knew that no matter what he said, Z wouldn't get rid of this thought. Kidnapping Qin Mo was a very dangerous matter. But Z's decision would never be changed. Just as Hoshino was in a daze, his phone was suddenly snatched away. It was Yu Cixin. He still had that signature smile on his face. It often made people think of the hot-blooded second-generation gangster in high school. He stuffed his left hand into his pocket. Let me see what you sent. Hoshino's movements sped up. That speed made Yu Cixin narrow his eyes. Hiding it like this makes people even more suspicious. Hoshino held his phone. His eyes were clear and his voice was the same as usual. Looking at other people's privacy doesn't seem like something you should do. Yu Cixin raised his hands. All right, here you go. Then, he tilted his head and his voice came over. Qin Mo is already suspicious of you. You should restrain yourself. Don't go against the wind and commit crimes. Hoshino raised his eyebrows. He was as gentle as jade and elegant as a gentleman. All right. He agreed so readily that Yu Cixin didn't know what else to say. The baby-faced person watched this scene. He felt that there was something strange between his captain and vice-captain, but he couldn't tell what was strange. 10:30 p.m. Fu Group. In the end, there were waves of heavy losses. Fu Group wasn't as glorious as it used to be. Fu Ximing, the young master who could have gotten all of Fu Group's shares just by waiting, also participated in the fight for the shares. He had already contacted many shareholders in private. During this meeting, he had to make that useless person leave with his mother. That was because he had long been prepared. In addition, Fu Zhongyi had been collecting a lot of dirt on his son. Hence, when this pair of father and son appeared, they were extremely confident. As the saying went, with a stepmother, there would be a stepfather. Fu Zhongyi had always been a scumbag. Even though they were both his children, he had never felt any guilt towards his eldest son. When Bo Jio didn't know anything, he wasn't willing to talk about his son at all. When others talked about him, there was a complete rejection and slight disgust in his eyes. Now that Bo Jio knew everything, he didn't have any thoughts of repentance. Instead, he participated in every dirt on Spade Z. When he treated Fu Ximing, he wanted to leave everything to him. He had never stopped praising him. The worst thing about Fu Zhongyi wasn't that he had betrayed his marriage with Yi Honghua. The worst thing about him was that he had abandoned his wife and son, forcing them into a corner. He had long forgotten that if it hadn't been for Yi Honghua, there wouldn't have been the Fu Group today. He had forced people to their deaths at every turn. He was ruthless and inhumane. But that was how humans were. In the face of huge benefits, no one would show their humanity. Some of the shareholders sitting in the office were the same. Yi Honghua was still flipping through the documents. When she saw Fu Ximing enter, her eyes dimmed. Unrelated people don't have the right to participate in the board meeting. Fu Zhongyi didn't even look at Yi Honghua as he led Fu Ximing to a seat. There are no unrelated people here. Ximing now has shares of the Fu Corporation. You probably don't know this, but the change in ownership this time is going to be drastic. All right, Ximing, tell me about some of the videos you've obtained. Those who have tarnished the reputation of the Fu Corporation, no matter how high their positions are, should be expelled. All right. Fu Ximing stood up. During this period of time, because of that trash, everything he did wasn't going smoothly. Especially after that trash won the National League, he would be compared by the people around him. He knew better than anyone what that trash was like in the past. He was a piece of trash that couldn't be helped. He didn't know how he had gotten to where he was today because of young Master Qin. Now was the time to let everyone know what kind of person he was. Fu Ximing turned on his laptop and projected some photos on the projector. He said in a dignified manner, "These are the things I got. Big Brother's private life has always been messy. As long as he doesn't go overboard, no one will care about him. However, the Fu Corporation can't have such a shareholder who painstakingly pours himself on men. Even outsiders say that the Fu Corporation became famous because of this. I think it's worth everyone to think about this." After all, the most important thing in doing business is reputation. Compared to He Honghua in the past, she was much calmer now. She sat in her seat without much emotion on her face, but her words were cold. Speaking of reputation, everyone in the marketing and operation department knows that all the hot-selling products of the Fu Corporation or the companies that are contacting us are all because of Spade Z's name. Besides, I have never heard of anyone claiming that the Fu Corporation relied on others to get their hands on us. As for you, you have been using the fact that I am Spade Z's younger brother to open up your circle of friends in the business world. This topic has been spreading like wildfire in the industry. Ximing, your brother's reputation is so bad. Why are you still using him? Fu Ximing's face turned red and white when he was interrupted. He didn't expect that a certain son had taught He Honghua that the business world was like war. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy could you win 100 battles. The thing that Fu Ximing didn't want others to know was exposed like this. Also, the gazes around them had obviously changed. Chapter 1037. My dear nephew's words are reasonable. Just as He Honghua was about to say something, a man in his 50s interrupted her with a smile. I don't deny the benefits brought by Spade Z's name, but when doing business, we have to pay attention to variables. Originally, this matter would have been settled and we wouldn't have interfered, right? But now, everything will be announced in the afternoon. When that happens, Spade Z's name won't be able to bring benefits to the company. Honghua, let me say something from a neutral point of view. Sometimes, you really need to discipline our young Master Fu. I know you guys have a lot of shares now and your words are tough, but this isn't how the company does things. You have to understand the people sitting here. Some things have gone overboard and we will consider withdrawing our investment. I think so too. The company's reputation will definitely be affected when there's a problem with the shareholders. It doesn't matter how much we received in the past, the most important thing is that there's a problem now. Since there's a problem, I think we have to deal with it. At the very least, we have to get our young Master Fu to explain himself. Don't you agree? Yeah, once this matter blows up, we are also worried about whether we can get our money back. When He Honghua heard this, she felt disgusted. These people. How could they be so shameless? All the customer analysis is on the data. The profits brought by Spade Z's name are enough for you to get a year's worth of dividends without doing anything. Are you asking for an explanation? You are using withdrawing your investment to pressure us. When the man in his 50s heard this, he spoke again. When have we ever pressured you? Your misunderstanding is really displeasing. Honghua, I am starting to doubt whether you are suitable to be the chairman of the board of directors. When Fu Ximing heard this, he put on an act and said, Uncle Li, don't get angry. Mr. He, Big Bro has made a fatal mistake in the company. As shareholders, we all have the right to ask for an explanation. It doesn't seem right for you to misunderstand us like this. No matter how big of a grudge you have against me in private, you don't want to see me here. However, every single one of our suggestions is for the company to be better. You misunderstand us like this and it really leaves us speechless. He Honghua was caught in a pincer attack by these two people. With just one look, it was obvious that they had come prepared. Those who didn't know better would think that He Honghua was petty. In reality, one person was playing the bad cop, while the other was playing the good cop. In the end, they were the ones who were good for the company. Think about who owns this company now, and whose breakthrough in quality is the reason why the profit points are profitable. He Honghua clenched her fists. Fu Ximing stood to the side and said, It's useless to just explain about this matter. Director, he should apologize to everyone on behalf of Big Brother. Apologize? He Honghua's face turned red with anger. Are you dreaming? Fu Shiming shook his head as if he couldn't reason with a shrew. Forget it, nephew. It's useless for you to say so much to her. If you were the CEO of the company, I wouldn't have to worry so much. The man stood up and was about to leave. He had no intention of respecting He Honghua at all. I can't attend this shareholders' meeting anymore. I'll come back after I see some sincerity. However, as soon as he finished speaking, click, the door of the conference room was pushed open. Chapter 1038. Fu Shiming shook his head, looking as though there was no way he could reason with a shrew. Forget it, nephew, there's no point in talking to her. If you were the CEO of the company, I wouldn't have to worry so much. He stood up and was about to leave without any intention of respecting He Honghua. I won't be able to continue with the shareholders' meeting. I'll come back after I see the sincerity of some people. However, the moment he finished his sentence, kata, the meeting room door was pushed open. A clear but cold voice slowly rang in everyone's ears, like ice cubes soaked in sake. The voice wasn't fast or slow, it was deep and neutral. They couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, but it was so pleasant that it was hard not to notice. There's no need for that. From today onwards, Boss Lee, you're kicked out. That one sentence broke the silence. In an instant, everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. A youngster stood there. Her silver hair matched perfectly with a suit. Her collar wasn't tied tightly, instead, it was slightly loosened. Her tall and slender figure was cut by the light. She was elegant and handsome, a living young master of an aristocratic family. Some people froze. After all, no one had expected that the next time they saw this useless person, he would be even more dazzling than before. Other than the previous shareholders' meeting, which had shocked everyone. This time, there was an indescribable aura. It was as though an ancient sword had finally been unsheathed from its scabbard, shining with its original brilliance. The expression on Boss Lee's face seemed to have been sucked out, leaving only anger. What do you mean? What I said. Bo Jio walked over, supporting herself with one hand on the meeting table. She smiled. Boss Lee, don't you want to withdraw your investment? Sure, from today onwards, you're kicked out. Manager Lee laughed. Some people think they're so great just because they're good at gaming. All right, let's divest, right? Everyone heard it. With such a small shareholder, the company's profits won't be any better in the future. If we don't divest, do we still have a way out? Brother Lee. Fu Zhongyi stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. All these years, we all know how much you have done for the company. Don't worry, we won't let anyone force you to leave. The most important thing to do in a business is to learn to be grateful. It seems that some people are clearly not suitable to be the decision-makers of the group. I'm sure everyone here knows who is right and who is wrong. At this point, Fu Zhongyi turned his head and looked at everyone in the meeting room. Everyone can see that my son is full of hostility and doesn't respect these elderly uncles at all. This goes against the ideals we had when we started our business. I suggest that we start with the highest voting rights. No matter how many shares we have, the one with the most votes will be the one to manage the lawsuit. When Manager Lee heard that, he immediately said, yes, activate the highest voting rights. The company cannot be destroyed by such an arrogant person. When He Honghua heard this, there was an obvious anxiety on her face. She had never imagined that Fu Zhongyi would have the cheek to say that the most important thing in business was gratitude. The people who had started the business with him had all been kicked out of the company by him with all kinds of excuses. And this Manager Lee was one of the people who had squeezed out other people's positions back then. What credit? What credit does he have? When these words came out of their mouths, He Honghua only felt a wave of disgust, a disgust that came from the bottom of her heart. How can there be such a shameless person? And the other party even wanted to use this reason to activate the highest voting rights? It was not easy for Chujio to get back her shares. It was so that she could have the absolute right to speak. Once the highest voting rights were activated, all of her previous efforts will be in vain. From the moment they entered the room, the other people were very quiet. Obviously, they had made a deal with Fu Zhongyi behind his back. So they acquiesced to Fu Zhongyi's words. When He Honghua saw this situation, She was very anxious and wanted to say something. The youngster just sat there and said casually, "Credit? When did Manager Lee do anything that is beneficial to the company? Aren't you always getting rebates for purchases? Who are you saying is getting rebates?" Manager Lee exploded on the spot. "I'm telling you, don't slander me." The youngster looked at him and said very slowly, "Lawyer Bai." "Lawyer Bai? Which Lawyer Bai?" When Lawyer Bai is mentioned, the first thing that people think of is the word Bai. Manager Lee's face turned pale for a moment. "No, impossible, it can't be that Lawyer Bai." Unfortunately, his prayers did not have much effect in the end. A certain someone in a suit walked in from the door. He was carrying a briefcase in his hand. His handsome face almost became the living sign of the entire lawyer world. Ordinary people may not know this person, but those in the business circle know him. Because no matter how low the case was, he was able to completely reverse the situation. At this time, even Fu Zhongyi's smiling face stiffened. Not to mention, Manager Lee, who was speaking righteously just now. How is this possible? How can he hire Lawyer Bai? Basically, many people know how difficult it is to get an appointment with Lawyer Bai. It is said that he has been appearing in court for a year. Previously, there was a very rich boss who gave Lawyer Bai 1 million yuan. But, Lawyer Bai ignored him and asked him to meet him in order. Some people also inquired about how a small lawyer can have such a big ability. After all, there is no one in this world who doesn't like money. But no matter how much they inquired, they couldn't find out about Lawyer Bai's family background. Some people in the business circle wanted him to help with urgent matters, but Lawyer Bai didn't agree even once. Now, he had actually appeared here, and he was even invited by that useless young master who had no connections at all. How could Manager Lee not be afraid? Even his arrogance was a little weaker than before. Fu Zhongyi clenched his fists, moving to block the way. Lawyer Bai, who was holding the briefcase, stopped and glanced at Fu Zhongyi. Fu Zhongyi smiled. "Lawyer Bai, I know you received money, so you had to make a trip here. How about this? I can double the amount that the person who doesn't care about the company gave you." Fu Zhongyi's words were especially generous. He didn't look like he was broke when the company was in trouble. However, after Fu Zhongyi finished his sentence, Lawyer Bai revealed a mocking smile. He walked past Fu Zhongyi, heading towards the youngster. His voice was calm. "Boss, can we begin?" "Boss." Was he calling young Master Fu? Was that possible? Gasps could be heard in the entire conference room, mainly due to the shock. Fu Zhongyi's expression froze completely, as though he had been punched in the face. Who could have imagined that the famous Lawyer Bai would call a high school student boss? And this high school student used to be a love-struck trash. It was simply unimaginable. But the truth was right in front of them. The youngster knocked on the table with one hand, his aura unchanged. Even though Lawyer Bai was standing beside him, the formless aura didn't waver. Instead, he spoke with a mocking tone akin to a vampire. "Throw the information on what Manager Lee has done all these years to him." The spare parts were originally cheap, but in order to get more commission, he doubled the price of the supplier. No wonder the Fu Corporation's profits are so low. From the start, someone has disregarded the company's profits and reaped huge benefits. According to the company's rules, the shareholder with the biggest share has the right to kick out the shareholder who damages the company. After being exposed of what he had been doing recently, Manager Lee's expression changed. It was as if all the blood had drained from his face. But that wasn't the end. The youngster got Lawyer Bai to print out all the relevant information, handing a copy to each of the shareholders. Bo Jiu continued, "You can come in and take him away." The other shareholders glanced at each other. They had assumed it was the usual security guards who had come to take him away. When they saw that the person who came was wearing a police uniform and handcuffs, all of their foreheads broke out in cold sweat. Manager Lee's eyes widened. Lawyer Bai pushed his spectacles up his nose, his tone calm and emotionless. As Mr. Lee had embezzled a huge sum of money during his work, from today onwards, we have officially filed a lawsuit against him. It seems like there's a conclusion. Which meant that the police had verified the information and were here to arrest him. Boss Lee was really done for this time. Relatively speaking, Fu Zhongyi and Fu Ximing's plan had been disrupted halfway. Some of them watched as Manager Li was brought out. They had already lost half of their courage. Besides, this wasn't the end. The youngster on the boss's chair laughed again, her tone calm. I heard someone wants to withdraw his investment? Which uncle is it? Stand up for me. The fat man who had helped Manager Li and Fu Zhongyi to suppress He Honghua was sweating profusely. The sound of the metal cuffs on Manager Li's hands made him feel as though he was going to end up the same way. He had only taken Fu Zhongyi's money and helped them verbally. He had no intention of withdrawing his investment. After all, there were 3 or 4 people who wanted to rebel. In the current Fu Corporation, if they didn't do something, they could be eliminated at any time. This wasn't the life they wanted. They just wanted money, they didn't want to do anything. Fu Zhongyi had clearly said that as long as he could regain control of the Fu Corporation, his dividends would increase by 20% and even his position would rise. But he had never expected things to turn out this way. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.